overthink.
Yeah.
So, the things that I hear, like, well, if I put this, it might mean this, and that might mean that, and that might mean, and it's like, oh my God, doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
Same with the texting. If I text, it means this, which means that, which means that, which I'm going to lead the whole relationship. And then when we get married, I'm going to be the one planning the work. Whoa, you're just sending a text saying I had a nice time.
Welcome back to another episode of the Morning Waltz podcast. I'm your host, Elisa Walters. And today we are diving into the world of modern dating with someone who knows it inside and out. Erika Ettin, better known as Dating Coach Erika, is a nationally recognized dating coach, author, and founder of A Little Nudge. She's known for her practical, no-nonsense advice, and I am so excited to have her here with me. So Erika, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here. I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, when our mutual connection, Mel, when she's like, I know her.
I
And
love
she's
that.
like, we used to sing in the choir together.
Yep.
I am really excited to talk to you about this. I am a follower of yours. I fangirled when she said you would have this conversation. So I want to know, how this all came to be for you, and take me back to the beginning, because you have a business background.
Correct. Yeah. So, in the olden days, I used to be an economist. So you don't go to school to study, online dating 101, right? So I did, and maybe you'll relate to this. I did the thing that you were supposed to do. I did the practical thing. My parents taught me, if you're good at, say, math, that's what you do. And I was good at math. So I studied economics. I worked at Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C. After college, and I got my MBA at night while I was working there. So I've always sort of had that math, econ, business mind, but it never occurred to me. I never thought I would be starting a business, and I certainly didn't think it would be in online dating. But separate and apart from that, I was a really early adopter of online dating. I started in 2001 when nobody did online dating, and everyone just assumed I was going to meet, of course, a killer or a stalker, whatever. But I just thought this is a neat tool. I've never been scared away by technology, and I thought this is a neat tool to meet new people. And then, because I'm a nerd, I started a spreadsheet of my own online dating experience. And initially, it was so I didn't accidentally write to the same person twice. Because before, you would use, your name, like Erica, Joe, Bob. You would use, Fun Guy DC or whatever, Hiker Hawaii, whatever. And so you don't want to write to Hiker Hawaii twice. So then I thought, I can measure things in here. What's my response rate? If I write to somebody, what's the probability that that person writes back? And if they do write back, what's my conversion rate between them writing back and us going on a date? And I made tweaks here and there, say the length of a profile or the length of a message, the number of pictures, the type of pictures, to increase those rates. I was doing well. My friends started asking me for help. I started writing their profiles and giving them general advice. I realized I loved it. I was not happy in a cubicle. And so in 2011, I quit my job at Fannie Mae and started my business, A Little Nudge, helping people with all aspects of online dating. I can't believe it's been 14 years, and it's adapted over time in that the online dating sites have changed over time. When I started, none of the apps on your phone existed. No one used smartphones yet. So, things have gotten a little faster. They've adapted, but the core is the same. I'm helping people put themselves out there in a productive and more successful way.
Yeah. It's funny that you say you're coming from a data mindset and putting people on a spreadsheet. I was just talking to my friend who's out in California and recently just went through a divorce. She is getting back into the dating game after being married for a very long time. And she's like, yeah, I started a spreadsheet. And I was like, imagine if you could go into your Hinge profile and pull a report that integrates into an Excel spreadsheet. How great.
I think that's probably coming.
Probably. Well, I would love to understand, dive into your approach specifically? I imagine it's also evolved over time with how fast paced it's been, but
Yes.
your approach to, well, let's start with NATO because I think that that is so important and that has become my motto.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me, NATO stands for not attached to outcome, and I'll explain it, but I'm curious to hear how you interpret it and how it impacts you, and then I'll explain how I mean it.
Oh, I love that. So I think that going into the first date, if I already start thinking about the second date, the third date,
Mm,
and then in the first date, when if we're getting along really well, then I'm like, oh my God, could I marry this person?
uh-huh. Yep.
So coming from the place of hold on, step back, let's
Mhm.
not get attached to that outcome. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That you nailed it. So I came up with NATO, not attached to outcome, for that very reason. People are putting a lot of pressure on themselves on first dates to know something, to know if this is their person, to know if this isn't their person. They're drawing conclusions 10 steps down the line, which in turn puts a lot of pressure on you and makes you not really present anymore on that first date. If you're thinking 10 steps ahead, could I marry this person? You're no longer listening to the conversation about their trip to Vermont, over this glass of Cabernet, right? And so NATO is really just to say you're going to meet a new person. Let's not, you can still want marriage. You can still want a long term relationship. I'm not saying you can't want those things, you should. But you're sort of peeling it back and saying, do I like this person sitting next to me, sitting across from me? Do I like them enough to go on a second date? That's all you need to know after a first date. Do I want to go on a second date? And when you sort of detach yourself from that outcome that you want, you can enjoy this person more. You can see them more as a whole person, and the whole process is way less stressful because you're putting less pressure on yourself to know something years down the line. All you have to know is like next week, do I have a day free to meet them again?
I'm curious as to people who might have a hard time with it
Hmm.
and it being a practice, what's probably the biggest challenge that you face with your clients or the community that you've
Yeah.
built online to get them out of that mindset?
It's much easier said than done. I'll be the first to admit that. Um, Sometimes I'll do a thing with a client where I'll say, the world ends at midnight. Okay. Obviously, that sounds morbid. I don't mean it in a morbid way. But let's say you're on a date. If the world ends at midnight, I'm not saying go crazy and do illegal things but if we don't have the future, all we have is right now. Let's enjoy that. It resonates with some people. It doesn't resonate with other people. But I try to get into that. Or I'll have people go on dates with multiple people at the beginning so they can't be so laser focused on one person. A client yesterday told me after 2 dates that she's, quote, smitten. And we talked about that, right? You're laughing because, yeah, this is common. And I'm thrilled. And I said to her, I don't want to tamp down your excitement. Like, you're allowed to be excited about a new person. That's part of this process. But I don't want you, she had two other first dates lined up. I said, I don't want you canceling those first dates. I want you going because we just don't know. After 2 dates, it's too much pressure on both you and that other person to think that you know everything about this person, that you can even be smitten. No one can live up to that. And so we discussed, okay, your only homework is to go on your next date with this person and to go on your other dates and see how they all pan out. And I told her, and it's the first time I explained it like this, and I don't know if it'll come out how it did yesterday on my Zoom call, but sometimes when you're that smitten, you want to lock it down, whatever that means to you, become exclusive, have this be your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever you want to call it. And I said, that's actually selling yourself short, because I consider it like when you lock in exclusivity or when you lock in a label, that's sort of the pinnacle of what you're getting. I only want you locking it in once you know this is who I'm getting, and let's assume nothing changes from that point on. Okay? They're certainly not going to get better, they might get worse. So if you're only here and it has potential growth of here, why would you want to lock it in here when you haven't experienced all of this yet? Experience all that. We don't know how that's going to go. It might go great, it might not, but let yourself have that opportunity. And part of it is just being comfortable with uncertainty, which I understand people are not comfortable with.
That gray area is very challenging for some people.
It is. And I think sometimes that people think that the other person has all of the answers. Like I said to her, he doesn't know what he wants with you for the rest of your lives. He's figuring it out too. Like it's not like the book, I've used this analogy before. It's not like the book has already been written and this other person is withholding the last chapter from you. You're actually, it's more empowering than that. You're co authoring this book together. And yeah, you're only on page 3 right now. That's exciting, scary, but exciting because you don't know what the rest of it looks like yet.
Mhm.
But they don't have all the answers.
No, and I think that's really interesting because I think that it's easy when you're in a scenario and you're dating and you're getting to know, and I'm guilty of it. I've seen friends do it, giving up the power.
Mm,
And I know that, want to be mindful of that dynamic, that power dynamic, but giving that person so much credit.
yes,
Um, yeah,
I totally agree. And especially when people say, like, how do I ask what we are? How do I ask if we're exclusive? And kind of like that power thing, I don't want someone to have all of the control or the say in what you are as a team, as a pair. And so I'd rather you enter that conversation with what you want and then ask how they feel about that. So, say, for example, you have been dating for 3 months and you are ready. You've seen what you're going to get and you like it and you're ready for that next step. You can come in and say, hey, I've really been enjoying getting to know you over these 3 months. I was thinking I would love to only be dating you. I would love to call you my boyfriend at the party we're going to this weekend. How do you feel about that? Versus what are we? Are we exclusive? That completely and utterly gives them the power. Also, back to something you just said, like if someone said to you after 2 dates, or someone said to me, "Oh my God, I'm smitten," wouldn't that put a lot of pressure on you? Like,
yeah,
how can I maintain? Like, yeah, I know I'm great, but that's a lot of pressure on me. I can't always be perfect. You don't know me that well yet. So to say you're smitten with me almost feels like the idea of me.
yeah,
So doing that for somebody else puts a lot of pressure on them and it's not quite real yet.
right. Kind of meeting people to where they're at currently.
Yeah,
It's
that too. I mean, I want you to know before you're exclusive with anyone, I want you to know how they are on a bad day. I want you to know how they are on a good day. I want you to know how they are when they're hungry. I want you to know how they are after a long day of work, after a day when they talk to their family, after a day when they saw a dog. I don't know, I'm making things up. But I want you to go through all of those scenarios with this person before you determine who they are.
Mhm. I want to talk about this archaic, and
Uh-oh.
might be making, a strong assumption there, or snap judgment, but there's these, you have to play by these rules. It's a game, it's a
Mm.
chase, where you have to let, if you're female, if you're a woman, it's like you have to let the man do the chasing and do the work. And I can't be the one to text first, or I
Oh,
can't.
that's ridiculous. You already know how I feel about this.
What what do you tell your clients when they're like, I'm not going to be the one to text first?
The minute you start overthinking things, you're playing games. Okay? Like when I come back from dinner with a friend, I always send that friend a text, "Hey, it was so fun seeing you tonight." I don't want you to think about it more than that. I don't care if it's a date, a friend, your mother, your child. If it's normal instinct for you to say thanks, I had a great time, the minute you start thinking I shouldn't text first, he that, she that, you're overthinking. Because the reality of it is, let's say it is after a date, you had a great time. If the other person, let's say you're a woman going out with a guy, if he doesn't like you, he doesn't care that you texted. If he does like you, he'll be thrilled that you texted. Sometimes people are hard to read, and someone needs that text to say, "Oh, good, that's the validation, or that's the positive reinforcement I needed to ask this person out again." And so I'm all for sending a text. I am all for indicating your interest. Don't get me wrong. I understand that most women who date men want the guy to pursue. I get it. And you can want that and you can still allow for that. And you can actually make it easier for him, saying, "I'd love to do this again. Let me know what you have in mind." You're essentially setting him up for success to lead without making him read your mind.
Mhm. I want to talk about the scarcity mindset of where women or men or just people out there who are dating are like, oh, there's no good people out there. What
You'll
is your
find exactly what you think you'll find. If you say, I didn't mean to cut you off, but if you say there's no good people out there, you know what you'll find? No good people. I was at this cooking class last year in Paris, and it was like all Americans because it was an English speaking cooking class. I was there by myself, and there was a woman, probably like late 30s, living in Boston. And she goes, ugh, all the men in Boston are horrible, terrible. Actually, she used the word trash. All the men in Boston are trash. Boston is a big city. Have you met every single man in Boston? Every single man and every single man. Have you met every person in Boston? I don't think so. And I said to her, I wasn't working. I was annoyed. I'm just trying to make some champignon or whatever. And now I'm working. And I said, is that mushrooms? I can't remember. Anyway, I said, oh, that's interesting. Are you trash? And she goes, no. And I said, so what if a man in Boston said all the women in Boston are trash? You're not trash, right? She goes, well, no. And I said, so how is it fair? I said, yeah, there are trashy people everywhere. You do have to weed through some of them. But you going out saying that is exactly what you'll find. You're putting out an energy. You're inviting trash. I hate the word trash. Calling people trash is so yucky. Yeah. So she ended up becoming a client. We had one coaching session. And look, I'm never going to get through to someone in 40 minutes. I'm not a therapist. I do my best for a mindset change. But we wrote a nice profile, and she started getting likes pretty quickly. You know, she's an accomplished, attractive woman. And we're looking through the likes, and there were like normal, nice looking people in there. And I said, and now you have to go on some dates with them. And she's like, ugh. And I'm like, I can't. But you will attract what you think you're going to find. And the minute you say all blank are blank, that's internal. That's your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. What do you think would surprise people the most about the work that you do and the situations that you encounter?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, a silly one is that everyone over, I don't want to pick an arbitrary age, but let's say 45, everyone says to me, I know I look young for my age. You know, what is an average age anyway? We all look our age by definition. So I just smile and nod. So that's something. Everyone sort of wants to level up a little bit. Everyone wants all the bells and whistles on a person, and that's fine. But I want to make sure you offer the bells and whistles too, whatever those bells and whistles are to you. So if you're saying, I want someone who explores the world, for example, have you explored the world? So it's really like holding yourself accountable, holding yourself to the standard of the person you're looking for. And I have noticed over time that it doesn't happen as often as we might want it to. What surprises me sometimes is the pictures people think are flattering. You know, they'll show me everyone, not specific to a certain gender. Everyone shows me pictures, and I'm like, I'm obviously nice, but I'm realistic. I'm like, no. I mean, if you have a big hat and sunglasses on, they'll be like, I thought I looked cute. It's artistic. I'm like, it is artistic. Put it on your Christmas card. But it doesn't belong in your profile because people are quite simple. They just want to see your face and your body. Like, we overcomplicate things and people sometimes. They just want to see who's going to show up on the date. Mm-hmm. That's about it. Other things that surprise me, you know, it's hard for me to say this because I am a woman, but the amount of reassurance that many women need has been surprising. And maybe I'm lucky, or maybe I've just created a life for myself where I do admittedly have a high self-esteem, but it really pains me when I'm looking at an objectively beautiful woman on Zoom and she says to me, I hate pictures of myself, or I look bad, or I sort of got on a client's case recently because she paused her Zoom, and you know how your like profile picture comes up when you hit pause, and it was a really cute picture, and she goes, "Oh, I love that picture of me." And I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you said that because so many people are so self-conscious." And she goes, "Oh, I was being sarcastic. I have like 3 chins." And she saw my face. It just went from happy to like, ugh. And I can't do anything. I wish that weren't the case. I know as women we're conditioned to feel scrutinized, but how you feel about yourself will impact how other people feel about you. And I'm not saying you have to feign confidence, although my calculus teacher in high school did tell us to talk the talk and walk the walk before we understood calculus. And I do think there's something to be said for feigning it, faking it till you make it a little bit, because how do we expect other people to love a thing about us that we are so vocally hating? You know what I mean? And we don't need to, I don't dig into where this comes from with people. I'm a coach, meaning different from a therapist, where I don't dig into the past and why you are how you are. I take you as you are and move forward and try to figure out how to find the most success moving forward. But I'll admit, after say 3 or 4 clients in a row who are just really down on themselves, it does take a lot for me to pick myself back up at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an energy exchange.
It is. And I'm not like, I know some people say, I'm an empath. I take on other people's stuff. I don't think I'm that. I think I'm empathetic, but I don't think I'm like an empath, whatever the definition is. But I'm still a human being. And it's hard for me to see people who are like, again, incredible. I'm meaning incredible people who work with me. And when they basically poop on themselves, that's hard.
Mm-hmm. There's this notion that along these lines that, you have to fully love yourself. You have to do all the work, and you have to, once you achieve that, then you can put yourself out there, or you're going to attract the person that is right for you. Do you have any thoughts on, because I think a lot of people get into this mindset of, well, I can't really put myself out there until I truly love myself, and I've reached this, this pinnacle of self-love. Do you have any thoughts on that philosophy?
I see 2 sides of that. On the one hand, I respect that. If you don't feel that you're putting your best self out there, do wait until you do feel like you can put your best self out there. I'm not saying there has to be any improvement involved, but that's a mindset. But on the other hand, are you saying that as an excuse to not put yourself out there? Mm-hmm. It's always when I this, when I that, then I'll do it, And so I see both sides of that. Do I think you have to be 100% perfect to put yourself? No, of course, who's 100% perfect at all times, right? Everyone's a work in progress. But you have to be at a point where you do feel like you're putting some form of your best self out there. But no, do I think everyone needs to be 100% perfect before they put themselves out there? Absolutely not. I think maybe that last bit comes with somebody else. Mm-hmm. But I will say, sometimes I hear something like the opposite of that. I've done all of the work. I am the best version of myself. Why am I not meeting someone? Mm-hmm. And what I will say to that is that you don't get rewarded for doing the reward is being more selective. The reward is knowing your worth. The reward is only choosing people who add value to your life and don't suck the energy out of you, right? And some people are like, well, I've done all the work. Now I should be, I'm sort of entitled to this perfect part. That's not how it works. In fact, it's harder to find someone after you've done all of that work because you know you're worth more.
There is a creator, and I think he's French, and his videos crack me up, but he says this empire, women don't need you to come in and disrupt the empire of their empire of peace that they've built for themselves. Yeah. So to your point of somebody who may have done the work and it feels maybe a little harder, because it's there, there's this very protective bubble.
Well, sure. If you've created a beautiful life for yourself, someone's got to be really spectacular to add value to that. That's why I think it's so off. Like society puts a premium on relationships, right? But it doesn't put a premium on the quality of, like, you could be in a bad relationship and society's like, well, they're together, they're winning. That's not winning. Winning is being happy in whatever form that takes, because we have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. So when I work with someone, I couldn't care. I hope they meet someone if that's what they want. Mm-hmm. But more important, like, I consider it more success. I worked with a client on breaking up with someone recently. Okay. He was no good. All the things she told me, no good. He was possessive and territorial and just like making her not feel good about herself and making her self-conscious. And I was like, we got to get you out of this. So we strategized on how, when, what, all the things. That to me is way more successful than if she had ended up with this bad person, So it's really also like changing the mindset of what is success.
Mm-hmm. I like that mindset. I want to go to the place of somebody comes to you, they want to work with you, mm-hmm. And they're like, I feel like my picker is off, whatever the case might be. Where do you start?
We might look at profiles together. So let's just use like Hinge for the sake of example. I'll have them share their phone screen with me over Zoom. So I will be watching who they're choosing. If they are choosing people who I don't understand, who have lazy profiles or who say something that doesn't sit right, or their pictures are just, I don't know, not representative of who I think they should be going out with, I'll ask them why. Conversely, more likely, they're not choosing people who I think seem great. And it'll usually be for something really superficial. One tooth was yellow. They weren't the right height. They said they go hiking and I don't like hiking. It's like, whoop-de-doo, so stay home. I'll always be like, they didn't ask you to go hiking. So we'll actually see who this person is choosing and why. And I will ask them uncomfortable questions about why. If I notice, I will get uncomfortable. I always ask permission to get uncomfortable first. So if I notice someone always saying no to a particular race, I will ask if we can talk about it. If the client says no, I shut my mouth and move on. If the client says yes, I never ask them to change, but I ask the why behind their choices. I notice, curious why. And then we might talk about what's going on in there. Maybe the way they grew up, maybe they're uncomfortable, maybe family pressure. I don't know. Sometimes I'll get through, sometimes I won't. I'm not trying to change someone's core being, but I do believe it's my job to ask someone the why behind their choices. I do it with height all the time. When I get the answer of, well, I want someone to protect me. Protect me from what? Like identity fraud? So I think sometimes we come with these preconceived notions of who we should be with based on so many factors, when in reality, it's like, who's actually going to make us happy? I love every story I get of someone, usually a woman, saying, I went out with a guy who wasn't my type, and I'm in love now. We got married, we this, we that. And it's like, sometimes we get so stuck in type that we tend to ignore everything else when we're attracted to someone. But when we allow someone to grow on us, we see them as a whole person.
Yeah. What's that moment like when there's that, somebody's had that breakthrough and they've shared that story with you?
They don't always share. It's an occupational hazard that when people are happy, they forget to tell me. But it feels good. It's usually over text though. So I go, yay. And then I move on to that day. I don't know. Sometimes I screenshot it and post it, but it feels good. It feels
Yeah.
good.
So I love seeing your posts, especially about how many people actually lie about their age.
Ugh,
And you mentioned we talked a little bit about the age thing earlier of like, oh, but I don't actually look that old, like that age. Are you just like,
it's ridiculous. It's so disrespectful. Okay, if someone lies about their age, we all know they're doing it because they want to meet somebody younger. It's no secret. They're not fooling anyone, right? And they think, well, if I just get in the door, someone will see how fantastic I am or how good I look. First of all, it's not all about how you look.
yeah,
It's about where you are in life. It's about your mindset. It's about can you share, childhood references. It is the minute you find out that somebody has lied about their age, even if they list their actual age in the profile, I suggest not choosing that person's profile because it is a lie meant to game the system. And they're basically saying, my preferences are more important than your preferences. It's a no. What else are they lying about? If they're so casually lying about something that can so easily be discovered, that it's they're lying about something else. I don't like it one bit.
yeah. Well, going back to profiles, what is kind of your checklist? What makes a pro? How does somebody nail their profile?
Oh, good question. Love that. It's positive. It says a few things about them, not just what they want, but who they are. So, I see profiles all the time. I want this, 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 this. I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And we should have this. Well, I don't know you. Like, do you play Scrabble? Do you watch birds? I don't know. So the profile should have a few things about who you are, what you like to do. Nailing a profile also is usually it's 6 pictures, just representative of your life. Normal pictures that look like you when you might show up. Not gym selfies, and I mean that for everybody. Not like just there has to be a level of self-awareness in the profile. Like what your self-awareness is less common than one may have thought. Like
Yeah,
you know what you're putting out there and how it's going to be received.
yeah,
And that's it.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing the self-awareness piece that.
I didn't know how rare it was. And again, I don't know if I'm blessed or that's something I've learned over time, but thank God I have self-awareness or else I couldn't do this job.
Do you see that in a generational thing too? Is
No.
that no, just people in general?
People overthink.
Yeah.
So, the things that I hear like, well, if I put this, it might mean this, and that might mean that, and that might mean, and it's like, oh my God, doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
Same with the texting, like we talked about earlier. If I text, it means this, which means that, which means that, which I'm going to lead the whole relationship. And then when we get married, I'm going to be the one planning the. Whoa, you're just sending a text saying I had a nice time. So it's sort of the overthinking.
Yeah.
So sometimes it just takes, if you want to do it, do it.
I think people also overthink the intimacy piece too. If I kiss somebody on the first date versus the second or third date, or how do you coach your clients when it comes to the intimacy component, having sex, kissing on the first
Right.
date?
I don't like rules. Some people say I would never kiss on a first date. I don't know. I think that's a little restrictive. What if you're feeling it and you want to?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to feel guilty with yourself for breaking your own rule that nobody told you to have? Do whatever you want. Now, as for the sleeping with someone, here's the thing. I don't care when you do what you do. I don't care. But the reason I often recommend waiting a little bit longer is because it might make you feel a certain way. It might make you feel more attached. It might make you feel prematurely attached. Hormones are released, right? And so I have no issues with anyone sleeping with anyone whenever they want. However, if you know it's going to make you feel a certain way negatively about yourself, if you genuinely don't know if the person you just slept with is going to contact you the next day, that's probably not someone you should be sleeping with. Mm-hmm. And so I get asked all the time, is the first date too soon? Is the second date too soon? I'm not here to tell you what's too soon. I don't care. However, if you, based on past experiences, know that you are going to feel a certain way if you sleep with someone after the first or second date, then yes, it is too soon for you. I strongly recommend building a solid foundation. Make sure you like this person. Make sure they like you. Do you respect them? Are you able to talk about sex? Like, if there's so many people out there having sex, being naked with people and being intimate in the most intimate body way, and yet they can't be intimate verbally. Like, if you're laying with someone and you can't talk about the sex you just had, it's probably too soon.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you said earlier about dating multiple people at the same time early on.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
When is that point that if somebody is dating multiple people that they, you know, because somebody might overthink that and say, okay, well, this person has this and this person has that, and you're kind of ready to take it to the next level. Do you have any advice for people at that point when it's time to, make that decision to move forward with one over the other?
I mean, if no one's forcing you to make a decision, you don't have to make a decision until you're ready. Generally, you'll know who you like the most.
Yeah.
I think we know who we like. You can also, like, if you want to focus on one person, go ahead and do that. But I'm saying you don't need to have, you don't need to make it some formal exclusivity thing until you get to know that person more. But if over time you realize, I'm really enjoying just seeing this person, that's totally fine. That's great. But you don't have to, lock something in yet. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, 100%. Just in general, how does dating from your perspective look for people who are in their 30s, are in their 20s, and their 40s, and beyond that? Do you see these all kind of apply to the same, the same principles apply to everyone no matter what their age, or are there
Pretty much.
different? Yeah. Yeah.
I have noticed, and I'll admit I don't work with a lot of Gen Z clients, partly because they grew up more with online dating, but partly because, well, they might not have the income to hire a dating coach, or they might not think they need help. But I have noticed that younger people are more scared of the word date. They're more scared of, I've noticed, I watched The Bachelor. That's how I learned about all this stuff, right? So,
Love The Bachelor.
Anyway. It'll be like I'm talking to someone, and I realize talking to can be anything from we are DMing on Instagram to we're talking on a dating app to we are sleeping together every night. Talking to. So it's like, what got scary about the word date? I think the word date is beautiful because it shows that you're intentional. It shows that there's no promises, but it shows there's some romantic possibility. So I don't care how old you are. I do recommend using the word, I'm looking forward to our date on Thursday. And if that scares the bejesus out of somebody, that's worth you knowing now, so you don't have to go on a date with them if that's too scary. If a date is too scary, a relationship is off the table.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's interesting because people these days are so quick to label things. Everyone's a label. Everyone's something. I'm anxious attached. I'm this and that. And yet, they won't say the word date. It's fascinating to me. But on the whole, no, I give the same advice for all ages.
Yeah. I do love that when you that you encourage people when setting that plan.
It's a date.
It's a date. Yeah. It's
so
a
simple.
Game changer.
Yes, it's probably the simplest advice I've ever given. And it's not like I thought too much about it. I made a video one day saying, here's how to confirm a date. It's a date. Yeah. But it does so many things that I hadn't even thought of when I made that video 2 years ago. It, one, confirms your date. It shows that it's on. We did all of the planning. 2, it shows intent. It's a date. It's not a hangout. It's not a meetup. And 3, it shows some excitement.
Yeah. 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 I think that's the other thing about dating. A lot of people feel like, oh, I got to go out on this date.
I know.
And it feels like work. But yeah, there's supposed to be joy and excitement in it.
Oh my God, I know. I made this video. I don't know if I'm going to post it because it's a little boring. But I made this video because a client the other day was like, it feels so functional. And I thought, the word fun isn't functional. So I made this cheesy video. Again, I don't know if I'm going to share it because it came out kind of cheesy, but I like wrote the word functional and I wrote the word perfunctory. And I'm like, and I circled the fun in both. And I'm like, it should, it's silly, maybe, whatever. But by the time this comes out, maybe I will have shared it. But I want this process to be fun. And I have a little assignment in that video, which I'll tell you, which is write down 5 places you want to go on a first date. Maybe places you've been, maybe a coffee shop, a bar, a walk route, just something you want to do on a first date, something you wanted to try. I don't know. So that way, even if the date doesn't go well, you still got to experience a place you wanted to go to anyway, because I want to make it more fun for people. And ultimately, if you meet someone great, you should be having fun with them. Like, I don't want it to just be a means to an end. I want the process to be enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I also think that you are a self-proclaimed pun person.
Yeah.
So I think you should put it out there.
Oh, we'll see. It's silly. I mean, yes. We'll see.
All right. Well, I'll keep an eye out for it.
Okay, thanks.
I want to know what you're seeing in terms of trends as it comes to dating. Are online dating apps shifting? There was an article that came out that Bumble had cut a bunch of their staff. Does that mean that dating apps as we know them are not going to be how they are in the future? AI?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you know as much as I do in that regard. I have no predictions for the future. I know from a business perspective, I just have to be quick to adapt to whatever is out there. People always ask me, since I have a business degree, I go back every semester to speak at entrepreneurship class. And, all the students, with their little pencils, where do you see the business in 5 years? I don't know. It's been 14 years. As long as I'm quick to adapt, it'll be fine. But if I try to predict the future, just like in dating, you try to predict the future, you'll be wrong. Yeah. So I don't. Dating apps are not going anywhere. I know everyone says they hate them, they should go away. Here's my feeling on that. It's much easier and cheaper to complain than it is to learn how to use a tool to your advantage. It's popular to complain, the mob mentality of going online and complaining about something and then having people sort of amp you up. It's like social media. You might complain about Instagram, but if it went away, you'd be sad and you'd have nothing to do. So if the dating apps went away, nobody would be happy.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going anywhere. How AI is going to impact things, I think it's too early to say. Some of the apps are using AI to review people's profiles. I think it's pretty silly. Gosh, they could have hired me for a lot cheaper and I'd review everybody's profile. But anyway, I sort of casually mentioned that to Hinge once. For the millions you spent, I'd be a fraction of the cost. But some people are using them to choose your photos, which I think is really creepy. You don't want a dating app crawling through your photos. I find that odd. I don't know. I know some people are using ChatGPT for help with their profiles. I think it's so obvious when they do that. I tell clients, I'll always give the benefit of the doubt. I'll say, did you write this?
Yeah.
And, they always come clean. There's a certain cadence that ChatGPT uses. I think it's going to get smarter, which is scary. But I think people are lazy. If you're lazy, how do you get what you want?
Yeah.
So I think AI has its uses. I mean, I use ChatGPT sometimes for things. I was just traveling and I used it for help with where should I walk around and go to dinner tonight. I think there's great uses for ChatGPT, well beyond that, but not at the expense of using our brains.
Yeah. Was that MIT study that came out recently about the impact of basically it's brain rot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do we think anymore?
Right.
Whenever I write my captions for anything I post on Instagram, I always write them myself. I might run it through ChatGPT for typos.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll say, did I miss anything? But it's so important to me to always get my own thoughts out first. And I think people are being lazy there.
I agree.
I'm pretty upset that the M dash is now the ChatGPT. I love an M dash. I use it correctly all the time. And I've actually been editing to incorrectly make it a hyphen now. Gosh.
I'm
This
sorry.
world?
The M dash is going to stay. I don't care what ChatGPT says.
I don't either. I still use it in text. Yeah. I dictate my text and I'll say like M dash. Anyway.
I want to just ask you on a personal note, like, what's your personal philosophy on love and what does that look like for you?
I would just say what I've said before, which is the goal in life, in anyone's life, in your life, in my life, anyone's life, should be happiness in whatever form that takes. I think as a society, we're changing, which is good. I always do find it interesting that people see the default as having a partner. I see the default as being happy. And so I encourage everyone to take a step back and remember that there is no one size fits all for happiness. That could be you by yourself. That could be you with a partner. That could be you in many different ways. That could be you with a few great loves in your life. I remember 12 years ago, I was sitting at my therapist's office on her couch, and I was going through a breakup. And that's generally when you always see a therapist in crisis, right? Not the smartest, but that's what most people do. And, just like anyone else, I was like, what if this? What if that? And she said, maybe you're meant to have a few great loves in life. I don't know. And something was comforting in that. And the great love doesn't have to be with another person. It can be with yourself. It can be with anyone. So my philosophy has less to do with finding a partner. It has more to do with finding the thing that suits your life and not cowering or catering to outside pressure. If I catered to outside pressure, I would still be sitting in my cubicle at Fannie Mae, miserable, right? So ultimately, it's standing up for yourself in love, in life, and doing what makes you happy. And that's my general philosophy.
Yeah, I love that. I was on a trip with a friend in San Francisco, and I've not been the person who's ever just, when I look back at my entire life, and even in high school, having a partner in a relationship was never at the front of my mind.
Right. I like your attitude.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
you're welcome.
I can be a little cynical in that way. I'm just like, oh, like.
Well, we do live on the East Coast, and that's part of our DNA. So.
Yes, it's true. When I moved back to Philly, almost full time, because I still go back to LA a couple times a year. I'm just like, oh, I'm back with.
So you're more of an East Coast like mentality?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I live in Brooklyn. I'm originally from South Jersey, and I mean, if my accent doesn't give it away, like I don't know. I have that. I think 98% of people enjoy that I'm very direct. The 2%, it doesn't work for them, but that's fine. It works for us.
It does, and people are like, oh, people in Philly. I mean, if they say this about New Yorkers too, but like people in Philly, they're so rude. And I was like, you know what? If I was stranded on the Schuylkill Expressway, somebody's they might curse me out and complain, but they're gonna help me change my tire.
100%. And I like the rudeness. I find it comforting. Like when I get home from a trip, I want to be outside on a crowded sidewalk with people yelling and honking. I don't know. There's something very comforting to me. Maybe I'm a strange creature, but I love it.
Yeah. You know where you stand. You know where you stand with people. Yeah. Well, I have a couple of like quick questions. That's like spitfire.
I'm ready.
All right. So first move, make it or wait?
In general, in life, I don't know, make it.
First date, deal breaker?
They bash their ex. Or say all of their exes are crazy.
Worst dating advice you've ever heard?
Oh, God. Anything that involves game playing.
Red flag often ignored?
When someone says, you're too good for me.
Dating app that gets it right?
I think they all get aspects right. If you know how to use the apps, if you know how to use each app, they can all get it right. But I like the interface of Hinge.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
That was it? That was an easy one.
All right. Well, Erika, thank you so much for joining me today. This was amazing, and I'm glad that you were able to sit down with me.
Me too. You're a great interviewer. I really enjoyed myself, and I'm really glad that Mel put us in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're in Philly or I come up to Brooklyn,
Deal.
we'll get coffee or something. It's a date.
Absolutely. Yay.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope Erika's advice left you feeling more empowered and entertained and inspired about finding love in this modern dating world. You can find Erika at alittlenudge.com or on her IG at alittllenudge.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.